The morning sun cast long shadows across the Afghan mountains as Lieutenant Sarah Chun adjusted her rifle scope for the third time. She had been with SEAL Team 7 for 18 months, but today felt different. The weight of proving herself never fully disappeared, even after countless successful missions. Her teammates respected her skills, but she knew that in the heat of battle, trust had to be earned again and again. The intel briefing had been clear, but concerning. A high-value target was meeting with Taliban commanders in a compound nestled between two ridges. The location was strategic but dangerous, offering multiple escape routes for the enemy, while leaving the SEALs exposed on the approach. Chin's role was Overwatch, positioned on a rocky outcrop 800 meters from the target building. As she settled into her position, Chin reviewed the mission parameters one more time. The primary objective was to capture or eliminate 3 senior Taliban leaders who had been orchestrating attacks on coalition forces. Secondary objectives included securing any intelligence materials and ensuring 0 friendly casualties. The stakes couldn't be higher, and everyone knew it. The team's communications crackled to life as they began their approach. Chin watched through her scope as her teammates moved like shadows across the mountainous terrain. Years of training had made their movements fluid and precise. Chief Petty Officer Martinez led the assault team, his experience evident in how he guided the younger operators through the treacherous landscape. Through her earpiece, Chun heard the familiar sounds of a mission in progress. Whispered confirmations, position updates, and the controlled breathing of operators under stress. She had learned to read the subtle changes in her teammates' voices that indicated rising tension or confidence in their approach. The compound came into view as the team crested a small hill. Chun adjusted her scope and began identifying potential targets and threats. The building was larger than the satellite images had suggested, with multiple rooms and what appeared to be a recently constructed watchtower. 3 vehicles were parked outside, indicating more personnel than expected. As Chun scanned the area, she noticed movement in the watchtower. A figure appeared briefly before disappearing back into the shadows. She keyed her radio to report the observation, but before she could speak, the morning silence was shattered by automatic gunfire. The Taliban had detected the approaching SEALs and opened fire from multiple positions. Chun watched in horror as her teammates dove for cover behind rocks and sparse vegetation. The carefully planned approach had become a desperate fight for survival in seconds. Martinez's voice came through the radio, strained but controlled. Contact, contact. Heavy resistance from multiple positions. We have 3, possibly 4 machine gun nests and unknown number of small arms. Requesting immediate support. Chin quickly identified the primary threats through her scope. 2 machine gun positions were pouring fire down on her trapped teammates, while several Taliban fighters were attempting to flank their position. The situation was deteriorating rapidly, and she knew that without immediate intervention, the mission would become a rescue operation. The sound of bullets impacting rocks near her teammates was clearly audible even at her distance. Chun could see muzzle flashes from at least 6 different positions, creating a deadly crossfire that pinned down the assault team. Every second that passed increased the danger to her fellow SEALs. Through her scope, Chun watched as one of her teammates, Petty Officer Rodriguez, was forced to remain exposed while returning fire. A machine gunner had him pinned behind a boulder that was steadily being chipped away by heavy-caliber rounds. The young SEAL's position would be untenable within minutes. Chin's training took over as she began calculating distances, wind conditions, and target priorities. The machine gun nest, causing the most immediate danger, was positioned in a rocky outcrop approximately 700 meters from her position. The elevation difference and morning wind conditions would require precise adjustments to her scope. As she prepared to engage, Chun felt the familiar calm that descended during moments of extreme stress. Missing would reveal her position and likely result in concentrated fire on her location. More importantly, her teammates were depending on her to eliminate the threats systematically and efficiently. There would be no room for error. Chun selected her first target, a machine gunner who was maintaining sustained fire on Rodriguez's position. Through her scope, she could see the enemy fighter clearly, his attention focused entirely on the trapped seal below. The range was challenging, but well within her capabilities. As she prepared to fire, Chen's mind briefly flashed to her childhood in California, where her father had taught her to shoot on the family ranch. He had always emphasized that shooting was about patience, precision, and respect for the weapon. Those lessons had carried her through sniper school and countless training exercises. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders as she aligned her crosshairs. 7 American warriors were depending on her accuracy and judgment. Their families were counting on her to bring them home safely. The magnitude of the moment was not lost on her as she began to apply pressure to the trigger. The morning air was still, creating ideal shooting conditions. Chen had accounted for the slight crosswind and adjusted her aim accordingly. Her breathing pattern was steady and controlled, just as she had practiced thousands of times on training ranges around the world. In the compound below, the Taliban fighters continued their assault, unaware that death was watching them through a high-powered rifle scope. They had achieved tactical surprise and held superior numbers and positioning. By all conventional measures, they had the advantage in this engagement. Chen knew that the next few minutes would determine the outcome of the mission and potentially the lives of her teammates. The enemy's superior positioning and numbers meant that a conventional firefight would likely result in friendly casualties. Only precision marksmanship could level the playing field. As she prepared to transform the tactical situation with a single, well-placed shot, Chen reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. Every hour of training, every challenging exercise, and every moment of doubt had led to this critical juncture in the mountains of Afghanistan. The sound of gunfire continued to echo off the rocky walls as Chun made her final adjustments and prepared to announce her presence on the battlefield in the most definitive way possible. The machine gunner in her crosshairs had no idea that his advantageous position was about to become his final resting place. The crack of Chen's rifle echoed across the valley like thunder. Through her scope, she watched the machine gunner collapse instantly, his weapon falling silent. The sudden cessation of fire from that position created a brief moment of confusion among the remaining Taliban fighters, and Chen immediately shifted to her next target. Rodriguez seized the opportunity and bounded to better cover, his movements fluid despite the continuing gunfire from other positions. Chen's radio crackled with his grateful acknowledgement, but she was already tracking her second target through the scope. A Taliban fighter armed with a rocket-propelled grenade had emerged from the compound and was taking aim at the exposed SEAL position. Chun could see him clearly as he shouldered the weapon, his finger moving toward the trigger. The distance was greater than her first shot, nearly 900 meters, but the target was stationary and focused on his own attack. Chen's second shot struck the RPG operator center mass just as he was about to fire. The grenade launcher fell from his hands and clattered down the rocky slope, the unexploded round rolling harmlessly away from the compound. 2 threats eliminated in less than 30 seconds. The remaining Taliban fighters began to realize they were being engaged by a sniper, but their attempts to locate Chen's position proved futile. Her rocky outcrop provided excellent concealment, and the morning sun was positioned behind her, making visual detection nearly impossible. Chief Martinez coordinated the team's movement as Chun continued to provide overwatch. Her third target was another machine gunner who had repositioned to maintain fire on the SEAL team's left flank. This shooter was more cautious, exposing himself only briefly before ducking back into cover. Chun waited patiently, her crosshairs steady on the spot where the enemy fighter would likely reappear. Patience had always been her strongest attribute as a marksman. While other soldiers might rush their shots, Chen understood that timing was often more important than speed. When the machine gunner finally exposed himself to fire another burst, Chun was ready. Her third shot silenced the second machine gun position, dramatically reducing the incoming fire on her teammates. The tactical situation was shifting rapidly in favor of the SEALs. The remaining Taliban fighters were now caught between advancing American forces and an unseen sniper who seemed to anticipate their every move. Panic began to set in as they realized their superior numbers meant nothing against such precise marksmanship. Chen methodically worked through her target list, prioritizing threats based on their immediate danger to her teammates. A fighter with an AK-47 who was attempting to flank Martinez's position became her fourth target. The shot was complicated by the enemy's movement, but Chen led the target perfectly, dropping him mid-stride. The compound's watchtower still held an unknown number of enemy fighters, and Chen could see muzzle flashes from its windows. The elevated position gave the Taliban an excellent view of the entire battlefield, making it a priority target for elimination. Chen adjusted her scope for the increased elevation and began engaging targets in the tower. Her fifth shot shattered the window where a sniper had been taking aim at her teammates. The enemy marksman tumbled from view, his rifle clattering down the tower's exterior. The psychological impact of Chen's precise shooting was becoming evident among the surviving Taliban fighters. Their coordinated attack had devolved into panicked defensive positions as they tried to avoid the invisible death striking from the mountains. Martinez's team began their advance toward the compound, using the confusion and reduced enemy fire to close the distance. Chen continued to provide overwatch, her scope sweeping across potential hiding spots and escape routes. A group of 3 Taliban fighters attempted to flee from the compound's rear exit, apparently abandoning the fight in favor of survival. Chen tracked them through her scope as they ran across open ground toward a dried riverbed that would provide concealment. Her 6th shot dropped the lead runner at nearly 1,000 meters, causing the remaining 2 to dive for cover behind a large boulder. Chen waited for them to reveal themselves, her patience unwavering despite the distance and challenging shot angle. When one of the fighters attempted to continue his escape, Chen's 7th shot ended his flight permanently. The final fighter remained pinned behind the boulder, effectively removed from the fight, even though he was still alive. The compound was now under direct assault by Martinez's team, their advance covered by Chen's systematic elimination of defensive positions. The remaining Taliban fighters were trapped inside the building with no hope of reinforcement or escape. Chen shifted her attention to potential threats inside the compound itself. Through the building's windows, she could see movement that suggested the surviving enemy fighters were preparing for a final stand. Her teammates would need precise fire support as they cleared the structure room by room. The first-floor windows became her focus as the SEALs reached the compound's perimeter. Chen could see armed figures moving between rooms, likely setting up defensive positions to ambush the advancing Americans. Her job was to eliminate these threats before they could engage her teammates at close range. Her 8th shot penetrated a first-floor window and struck a Taliban fighter who had been preparing to fire from an interior doorway. The precise marksmanship continued to demoralize the remaining defenders while protecting the advancing SEALs. Martinez's voice came through the radio as his team prepared to breach the main entrance. "Overwatch, we're going in. Keep us covered on the upper floors." Chun acknowledged and shifted her focus to the building's 2nd story, where she had detected movement in several rooms. The enemy fighters were likely repositioning to fire down on the SEALs as they entered the building. The complexity of the urban combat environment required Chun to make split-second decisions about target identification and engagement priorities. Friendly forces would soon be inside the same building as enemy combatants, making her fire support both critical and extremely dangerous. Through her scope, Chen watched a Taliban fighter appear at a 2nd-story window with what appeared to be a grenade. The explosive device could devastate her teammates in the confined space of the building's interior. There was no time for hesitation. Her 9th shot struck the enemy fighter in the upper chest, causing him to drop the grenade inside his own position. The subsequent explosion eliminated several other defenders and created a significant breach in the building's upper floor. The SEALs successfully breached the main entrance and began their room-by-room clearing operation. Chun continued to monitor the upper floors, ready to engage any threats that might emerge to fire down on her advancing teammates. The methodical clearing process continued for several minutes, with Chun providing precise fire support whenever enemy fighters exposed themselves at windows or doorways. Her marksmanship had transformed what could have been a bloody urban battle into a relatively controlled operation. As the building was gradually secured, Chun began to relax her vigil slightly. The immediate threats had been neutralized, but the mission was far from over. Intelligence gathering and site exploitation would require continued security, and the Taliban might attempt to reinforce their position. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky as Chun maintained her overwatch position, ready to engage any new threats that might emerge. Her rifle had spoken 11 times, and 11 enemy combatants no longer posed a danger to American forces. The transformation of the tactical situation had been dramatic and decisive. What began as a carefully planned ambush by numerically superior Taliban forces had become a demonstration of the power of precision marksmanship and coordinated team tactics. The interior of the compound revealed the true scope of the Taliban operation. Martinez's team discovered weapons caches, communication equipment, and detailed maps showing planned attacks throughout the region. The intelligence value of the site exceeded their initial expectations, making the successful assault even more significant. Chin maintained her overwatch position as her teammates methodically searched each room. Through her scope, she monitored the surrounding area for any sign of reinforcements or escaping enemy personnel. The Taliban's regional commander was among their primary targets, and his capture would significantly disrupt insurgent operations. The search revealed 3 high-value targets hiding in a reinforced basement area. These were the senior Taliban leaders who had been coordinating attacks against coalition forces for months. Their capture would provide invaluable intelligence about planned operations and the broader insurgent network. As the prisoners were secured and prepared for extraction, Chin noticed movement in the distant ridgeline. A group of armed figures was approaching from the east, likely Taliban reinforcements responding to the sounds of battle. The new threat was approximately 1,500 meters away, but moving steadily toward the compound. Chun immediately reported the approaching enemy force to Martinez, who was still inside the building coordinating the intelligence gathering operation. The team would need time to properly exploit the site and prepare the capture materials for transport, but the advancing Taliban fighters threatened to turn the successful mission into a prolonged engagement. The approaching force consisted of at least 8 fighters, some carrying heavy weapons that could pose a serious threat to the extraction helicopters. Chun counted 2 RPG teams and what appeared to be a crew-served machine gun among the advancing enemy personnel. Chun began engaging targets at extreme range, pushing the limits of her rifle's effective distance. Her first shot at the advancing force struck the lead fighter, causing the entire group to take cover and slowing their advance significantly. The psychological impact of accurate long-range fire was often as important as the physical casualties inflicted. The Taliban reinforcements tried to use terrain features for cover as they continued their approach, but Chin's elevated position gave her clear sight lines across the valley. Her second shot at the distant targets eliminated one of the RPG operators, reducing the immediate threat to friendly aircraft. Martinez's voice came through the radio with an update on the compound search. Overwatch, we need another 10 minutes to finish site exploitation. Can you keep the reinforcements off our backs? Chin acknowledged while tracking another target through her scope. The remaining Taliban fighters were being more cautious now, using cover and concealment more effectively. However, their advance had stalled under the pressure of her accurate fire, buying valuable time for the intelligence gathering operation. Her scope revealed that the enemy force had split into 2 groups, apparently attempting to approach the compound from multiple directions. This tactical adjustment showed that they were dealing with experienced fighters who understood how to respond to sniper fire. Chun prioritized the group carrying the machine gun, as this weapon system posed the greatest threat to both her teammates and the incoming extraction aircraft. The crew was attempting to set up their weapon behind a rocky outcrop that would give them excellent fields of fire. The distance to the machine gun position was nearly 1,600 meters, at the extreme edge of her rifle's effective range. Environmental factors including wind speed, air density, and temperature would all affect the bullet's trajectory over such a long distance. Chun made careful adjustments to her scope and prepared for one of the most challenging shots of her career. The machine gun crew was partially concealed, and she would have only a brief opportunity when they exposed themselves to position their weapon. When the assistant gunner raised his head to spot targets for the gun crew, Chun was ready. Her shot struck him center mass, causing the entire crew to abandon their position and seek better cover. The machine gun threat was neutralized without being able to fire a single round. The remaining Taliban reinforcements continued their cautious advance, but their progress was significantly hampered by Chin's long-range interdiction fire. Every time they attempted to move across open ground or establish firing positions, accurate shots from the mountain forced them back into cover. Chin's ammunition supply was running low after the prolonged engagement, but she continued to make every shot count. Each round fire had to serve a tactical purpose, either eliminating a specific threat or forcing the enemy to remain in defensive positions. The compound search was nearing completion as Chun engaged her final targets among the reinforcing Taliban fighters. The enemy force had been effectively neutralized as a threat, with several casualties and the remainder pinned down in defensive positions too distant to affect the extraction operation. Martinez's team completed their intelligence gathering and began preparing for helicopter extraction. The captured Taliban leaders and recovered documents would provide coalition forces with unprecedented insight into insurgent operations throughout the region. Chun heard the distant sound of approaching helicopters as the extraction aircraft arrived on schedule. The UH-60 Black Hawks approached from the south, using the mountain ridges to mask their approach from potential enemy observation. The first helicopter landed in a cleared area near the compound, while Chun maintained overwatch on the surrounding terrain. Her teammates quickly loaded the prisoners and captured materials while maintaining security around the landing zone. Chun monitored potential threats as the second helicopter prepared to extract her from the overwatch position. The Taliban reinforcements remained pinned down by her earlier fire, but she watched for any signs that they might attempt to engage the aircraft with small arms or remaining heavy weapons. The extraction proceeded smoothly, with Chun being picked up from her mountain position without incident. As her helicopter lifted off, she could see the tactical situation from a new perspective. The compound showed clear signs of a morning's battle, and the scattered positions where she had engaged enemy targets told the story of a precisely executed mission. During the flight back to base, Chun reflected on the morning's engagement. She had fired 23 rounds and eliminated or neutralized 15 enemy combatants, protecting her teammates and ensuring the mission's success. The precision marksmanship had transformed a potentially catastrophic ambush into a decisive victory. The intelligence gathered from the compound would later prove invaluable in disrupting Taliban operations throughout the region. Several planned attacks were prevented, and key insurgent leaders were captured or eliminated based on the information recovered during the mission. Chin's performance during the engagement earned recognition from her chain of command and solidified her reputation as one of the most skilled marksmen in the SEAL community. However, she viewed the mission's success as a team effort, emphasizing the coordinated tactics that made such precision fire support possible. The after-action review revealed that Chin's long-range marksmanship had been the decisive factor in the mission's success. Without her ability to eliminate key threats and suppress enemy reinforcements, the assault team would likely have faced significantly higher casualties. The Taliban's tactical advantage had been completely negated by a single skilled marksman operating from a carefully chosen position. The engagement demonstrated the continued relevance of precision shooting in modern warfare, where technology and tactics combine to create overwhelming advantages for properly trained forces. As the helicopters approached their home base, Chun checked her rifle and equipment, already thinking about lessons learned and improvement for future operations. The successful mission was now history, but the ongoing war required constant vigilance and continued excellence from every member of the Special Operations community. Back at the forward operating base, the full impact of the morning's mission became clear during the intelligence analysis. The captured Taliban commanders provided information that led to the discovery of a network of weapon caches and safe houses throughout the province. Chin's precise shooting had not only saved American lives, but had also delivered a devastating blow to insurgent operations. The base's intelligence officer, Major Thompson, briefed the team on the significance of their capture. The Taliban regional commander they had taken alive was responsible for coordinating attacks that had killed dozens of coalition soldiers over the past year. His detailed knowledge of insurgent networks would prove invaluable in future operations. Chin spent the afternoon cleaning and inspecting her rifle, a ritual that helped her process the intense emotions that followed every combat engagement. Each piece of the weapon was carefully examined and maintained, ensuring it would be ready for the next mission. The rifle had performed flawlessly during the morning's engagement, and she wanted to keep it in perfect condition. The weapon's accuracy had been tested under extreme conditions, with shots ranging from 700 to over 1,600 meters in challenging mountain terrain. The combination of quality equipment and extensive training had produced results that would be studied and analyzed by military marksmen for years to come. During the evening briefing, Chun learned that signals intelligence had intercepted Taliban communications describing the devastating effect of the sniper fire. Enemy fighters were expressing fear about operating in areas where American marksmen might be positioned, indicating a significant psychological impact beyond the immediate tactical results. The successful mission generated requests for Chin's team to conduct similar operations throughout the region. Taliban commanders were reportedly changing their operational patterns and avoiding areas where long-range precision fire might threaten their activities. The mere possibility of encountering such accurate shooting was affecting enemy decision-making processes. Chin's reputation within the special operations community continued to grow as word of her marksmanship spread among the various units operating in the region. Other SEAL teams began requesting her participation in their missions, recognizing the tactical advantage provided by her shooting skills. However, Chin remained focused on her current team and their ongoing mission requirements. She had developed strong bonds with Martinez's team over months of operations, and their coordination during the morning's engagement had been nearly perfect. The trust and communication built through shared combat experiences could not be easily replicated with new teammates. The psychological evaluation that followed every major combat engagement revealed that Chin was processing the events in a healthy manner. She understood the necessity of her actions and felt pride in protecting her teammates, but she also carried the weight of taking human lives. The base's chaplain and psychologists were available to help service members work through these complex emotions. Training continued despite the successful mission, with Chun working to refine her skills at even longer ranges. The mountainous terrain of Afghanistan often required shots at distances that pushed equipment and human capabilities to their limits. Every day spent on the range could potentially save lives during future operations. Chin also began mentoring younger snipers who were arriving at the base, sharing her experiences and techniques with the next generation of special operations marksmen. The knowledge gained through combat experience was invaluable and could not be taught through classroom instruction alone. The Taliban's response to the morning's engagement became apparent over the following days as intelligence reports showed significant changes in enemy behavior patterns. Key leaders were moving more frequently and using different communication methods to avoid detection. The successful mission had forced the insurgents to adapt their entire operational approach. Chin's shooting during the engagement was analyzed frame by frame, using recordings from her rifle scope camera and overhead surveillance assets. The precision and consistency of her marksmanship under extreme stress impressed even the most experienced combat veterans who reviewed the footage. The technical aspects of the long-range shots were studied by military researchers interested in understanding the limits of current sniper systems. Environmental conditions, equipment performance, and human factors all contributed to the exceptional accuracy demonstrated during the engagement. Chen participated in these technical discussions while emphasizing that equipment alone could not produce such results. Years of training, mental preparation, and combat experience have been necessary to perform effectively under the extreme stress of the morning's battle. Technology was only as good as the person using it. The mission's success also highlighted the importance of proper team coordination and communication. Chen's ability to engage multiple targets while keeping track of friendly force positions required constant radio contact and shared understanding of the tactical situation. The intelligence gathered from the captured Taliban leaders continued to produce results weeks after the mission. Follow-up operations disrupted insurgent supply lines and eliminated several bomb-making facilities based on information provided by the prisoners. Chen's marksmanship had set in motion a chain of events that degraded enemy capabilities throughout the region. Media attention surrounding the mission was carefully controlled to protect operational security and the identities of the personnel involved. However, the story of the female sniper who had saved an entire SEAL team began circulating within military circles, inspiring other women in combat roles. Chen preferred to avoid publicity, focusing instead on her professional development and continued service with her team. The mission represented one successful operation in an ongoing conflict, and she understood that consistency over time was more important than any single spectacular performance. The lessons learned from the engagement were incorporated into training programs for other special operations units. The combination of precision marksmanship and coordinated assault tactics demonstrated during the mission became a model for similar operations in complex terrain. Chen's performance evaluations following the mission were exceptional, but she continued to identify areas for improvement in her own skills and techniques. Professional military personnel understood that there was always room for growth, regardless of past successes. The captured weapons and equipment from the Taliban compound revealed sophisticated enemy capabilities that had not been previously detected in the region. The intelligence windfall from the mission continued to provide valuable information about insurgent tactics and equipment sources. Chen's teammates expressed their gratitude for her life-saving marksmanship, but the team's culture emphasized collective success rather than individual achievements. Every member of the unit had played a crucial role in the mission's success, from initial planning through final extraction. The morning's engagement became a case study in military academies and special operations schools, demonstrating the continued relevance of individual marksmanship skills in modern warfare. Technology and teamwork were essential, but human skill and judgment remained irreplaceable factors in combat success. As Chun prepared for future missions, she carried with her the knowledge that her abilities could make the difference between life and death for her fellow service members. This responsibility drove her continued pursuit of excellence and her dedication to the demanding profession of military special operations. 6 months after the mountain engagement, Chen found herself preparing for what would be her final mission in Afghanistan. The Taliban networks that had been disrupted by her marksmanship and her team's operations were showing signs of reorganization, requiring one last major strike to maintain pressure on insurgent activities in the region. The intelligence picture had evolved significantly since the mountain compound raid. Information gathered from that mission had led to the identification of a high-level Taliban meeting plan for a remote valley near the Pakistani border. This gathering would bring together surviving regional commanders attempting to rebuild their shattered networks. Chen's reputation had grown throughout the special operations community, and she had been specifically requested for this final operation. The target location presented unique challenges that required the most skilled marksmen available. The meeting site was surrounded by steep terrain that would limit approach routes while providing numerous escape paths for enemy personnel. The mission briefing revealed that intelligence agencies had been tracking the Taliban leadership for weeks, waiting for an opportunity to strike when multiple high-value targets would be present simultaneously. The planned meeting represented the best chance to eliminate key insurgent leaders before Chen's deployment ended. Preparation for the mission required extensive reconnaissance and planning. Satellite imagery revealed that the target valley was heavily defended, with multiple observation posts and prepared fighting positions. The Taliban had learned from previous encounters and were taking extensive security precautions. Chen studied the terrain models and aerial photographs with her teammates, identifying potential shooting positions and escape routes. The distances involved would be among the longest she had ever attempted in combat, with some potential targets located over 2,000 meters from viable sniper positions. The team's equipment was upgraded for this final mission, with Chen receiving a new rifle system specifically designed for extreme long-range engagements. The weapon incorporated advanced ballistic computers and environmental sensors that would help compensate for the challenging conditions in the target area. Training for the mission included extensive practice at extreme ranges using ammunition identical to what would be carried into combat. Chen spent hours perfecting her technique with a new rifle system, learning to trust its advanced capabilities while maintaining her fundamental marksmanship skills. The insertion into the target area took place during a moonless night, with the team using advanced night vision equipment to navigate the treacherous mountain terrain. Chen carried her rifle and enough ammunition for a prolonged engagement, knowing that resupply would be impossible once the mission began. The team established their observation post on a rocky ridge overlooking the target valley, with Chen positioned to provide overwatch on the main approach routes. Intelligence indicated that the Taliban leadership would arrive throughout the morning, providing multiple opportunities for precision engagement. As dawn broke over the mountains, Chen could see the target compound through her scope. The building was larger than previous Taliban meeting sites, suggesting that this gathering was indeed significant. Multiple security posts were visible around the perimeter, confirming the importance of whoever would be attending. The first vehicles arrived shortly after sunrise, carrying what appeared to be mid-level Taliban commanders based on their security arrangements. Chen tracked each arrival through her scope, building a mental picture of the enemy force disposition and identifying priority targets. The main target, a senior Taliban leader responsible for coordinating attacks throughout the region, arrived in a heavily armored vehicle accompanied by numerous bodyguards. Chen watched as the convoy navigated the winding road to the compound, noting defensive positions and potential threats. Chen's radio crackled with updates from her teammates who were monitoring communications and tracking additional arrivals. The intelligence picture indicated that this was indeed the most significant Taliban gathering in months, justifying the risks involved in the complex operation. The meeting began inside the compound, while Chen maintained her vigilance from the mountain ridge. Her teammates were positioned to assault the building once she had eliminated key security positions and reduced the enemy's ability to resist or escape. When the order came to begin the engagement, Chen was ready. Her first target was a machine gunner positioned to cover the main approach route. The shot was just over 1,800 meters, requiring precise calculation of environmental factors and ballistic trajectory. The crack of Chen's rifle echoed across the valley as her first shot found its mark. The machine gunner collapsed instantly, and the Taliban security force immediately went to high alert. However, they still had no idea where the devastating accurate fire was originating from. Chen's second shot eliminated a sniper positioned in the compound's watchtower, removing a significant threat to her advancing teammates. The enemy marksman had been scanning the surrounding ridges but failed to detect Chen's carefully concealed position before becoming her target. The systematic elimination of security positions continued as Chen worked through her target list. Each shot was calculated and deliberate, designed to reduce enemy resistance while protecting her teammates during their assault approach. The Taliban leaders inside the compound began evacuating as the security situation deteriorated around them. Chen tracked their vehicles through her scope as they attempted to escape along mountain roads that offered little concealment from her elevated position. Her longest shot of the engagement struck the driver of the lead escape vehicle at nearly 2,000 meters, causing it to crash and blocking the narrow mountain road. The remaining vehicles were trapped, unable to advance or retreat effectively. Chun continued engaging targets as her teammates reached the compound and began their assault. The combination of long-range precision fire and close-quarters combat overwhelmed the Taliban defenders, who had not expected such coordinated tactics. The mission's success exceeded all expectations, with multiple high-value targets eliminated or captured. The intelligence gathered would disrupt Taliban operations for months, while the loss of experienced leadership would require years to replace. As the extraction helicopters approached, Chun prepared to leave Afghanistan for the final time. Her deployment had been marked by exceptional performance and significant contributions to the overall mission success. The mountain valley where her final engagement took place would be remembered as the site where Taliban resistance in the region was finally broken. The helicopter ride back to base gave Chun time to reflect on her experiences in Afghanistan. She had proven that skill, training, and determination could overcome seemingly impossible odds. More importantly, she had protected her teammates and contributed to the safety of coalition forces throughout the region. Chin's service in Afghanistan concluded with commendations and recognition for her exceptional marksmanship and professional conduct. However, she viewed her greatest achievement as the fact that her teammates had all returned home safely, knowing that her accurate shooting had played a crucial role in their survival. The lessons learned and techniques developed during her deployment would be passed on to future generations of military marksmen. Chin's legacy would live on through the training programs and tactical innovations inspired by her combat experiences in the mountains of Afghanistan. As her military career continued, Chin carried with her the knowledge that precision, patience, and teamwork could accomplish objectives that seemed impossible. The mountain engagements had tested every aspect of her training and character, proving that excellence under pressure was achievable through dedication and professional competence.